The non-terminal domain is essentially infinitary. It begins with expansive potential and uses grammatical transformations to actualize one terminal expression. So it's that which connects between potential and actualization. So you can think of this through generative grammar. This is an example of a totally nonsense sentence. This sentence doesn't have any meaning in English. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. This has no semantic content in spoken English, but it's a grammatically valid sentence. It begins with a start symbol replaced by non-terminal forms of phrases. There's considerably more structure that goes into the generation of sentences than suggested by this graphic. It's not just noun, phrase, verb, phrase. It's actually pretty much everything from this idea has to be accounted for before it can be turned into an expression. It's what is the abstract idea of colorlessness? How is it saying to construct green ideas, etc. And this is not a grammatically well-formed sentence, because even though it is syntactically correct, it is incorrect semantically. Syntax is in the non-terminal domain, whereas semantics is in the terminal domain. So when we are trying to assess whether an expression of physical reality is well-formed, then we need to consider that. For example, the non-terminal domain does not just deal with physical laws, but also with the start symbol and the generalized drive for the self-actualization of the universe. A pretty hard thing to do. Somehow, the non-terminal domain needs to connect between this intrinsic drive of the universe to actualize and identify itself, and then it is the only middleman in between that. So all the structure of reality exists here. It exists in this little box, is that all of the structure that turns that drive, that turns that global structure into local expressions. This is how the universe is actualized. The non-terminal domain has to take these really unclear instructions, and then it is basically functioning as what Langan calls a self-simulative scratchpad. Imagine you're at work and your boss gives you confusing instructions. You're not going to necessarily figure out what he was saying to do the first time you try. You're going to need to try out a bunch of different strategies, and then if you're intelligent, you'll learn from each trial and error by assessing the value you get. Maybe that's positive feedback from your boss. Maybe if you skip around the room 3 times, you'll get more sales leads. Okay, I got 10 sales leads when I skipped around the room. Clearly that is valuable. Reality exists as part of this non-terminal domain, constantly testing various configurations of reality. So it's not quite how this parse tree would suggest, where it's just totally deterministic, is that this sentence becomes the grammar becomes the expression of the sentence. It's actually self-deterministic, which means that it is a closed system which feeds back information to itself. So here you can see the self-simulative scratchpad connects back to the self-actualized universe. And so it's a cycle. At every moment that there is a new form of self-actualization in the universe, this original drive is reinforced by coming up with plans. It says we should create biological life because that will help the universe identify itself. We should create star systems. It's not exactly like this. It's not that reality doesn't just type to itself, but it's like we should create galaxies because these seem valuable to the general purpose of reality. The actualized universe gets these instructions, like how the non-terminal domain of language gets instructions on how to construct itself. Okay, so now we actualize biological life, star systems, and galaxies. Gravity is good. It would be good if massive objects attracted each other. It would be good if the universe had this physical extension, in that there were these fundamental forces. And so everything is fine-tuned through the non-terminal domain. Nothing is assumed. All that the reality says is, I want to express myself, and the non-terminal domain is constantly coupling with the terminal domain to figure out what reality means in terms of self-expression. It is structuring itself to bring about the optimal purpose, and somehow each of these things, so it sends this down, so it sends down instructions. This processes instructions, and the determinal domain expresses utility, value for the universe. It says, is this utility connected to this goal? To the extent that it is assigned a value of teleology. Based on whichever things have the highest teleological value, their structure is reinforced, and the non-terminal domain learns from that and is able to make better decisions in the future. The universe is constantly self-learning, self-memorizing, and self-optimizing because it has this intrinsic structure of memory and intelligence by which it is able to create itself and value different possible expressions, and therefore it can adapt on the fly to freely changing internal conditions using this structure. So this is an incredible way that we can think about and understand how reality is capable of fine-tuning itself, like it's said in some scientific circles, in order to have such a seemingly optimal expression